The Six Swans. Once upon a time a king was hunting in a great wood, and he pursued a wild animal so eagerly that none of his people could follow him. When evening came he stood still, then looking round him he found that he had lost his way, and, seeking a path, he found none. Then all at once he saw an old woman with a nodding head coming up to him, and she was a witch. Did he know that? "My good woman," said he, "can you show me the way out of the wood?" "Oh yes, my lord king," answered she, "certainly I can, but I must make a condition, and if you do not fulfill it, you will never get out of the wood again, but will die there of hunger." "What is the condition?" asked the king. "I have a daughter," said the old woman, "who is as fair as any in the world. If you will take her for your bride and make her your queen, I will show you the way out of the wood." Is it obvious that he's the king? So he's not out of the kingdom. He's just in a big forest in his kingdom, maybe, and he's recognized. The king consented because of the difficulty he was in, and the old woman led him into her little house where her daughter was sitting by the fire. She received the king just as if she had been expecting him. And though he saw that she was very beautiful, she did not please him, and he could not look at her without an inward shudder. Nevertheless, he took the maiden before him on his horse, and the old woman showed him the way, and soon he was in his royal castle again, where the wedding was held. He's good for his word, at least. The king had been married before, and his first wife had left 7 children, 6 boys and 1 girl, whom he loved better than all the world. And as he was afraid the stepmother might not behave well to them, and perhaps would do them some mischief, he took them to a lonely castle standing in the middle of a wood. Oh. There they remained hidden, for the road to it was so hard to find that the king himself could not have found it, had it not been for a ball of yarn with wonderful properties which a wise woman had given him. When he threw this down before him, it unrolled itself and showed him the way. But the king went so often to see his dear children that the queen was displeased at his absence. He became curious and wanted to know why he went out alone into the woods so often. She bribed the king's servants with much money, and they showed her the secret and told her of the ball of yarn, which alone could point out the way. Then she gave herself no rest until she had found out where the king kept the ball. Then she made some nice white silk shirts and sewed a charm in each, since she had learned witchcraft from her mother. And once when the king had ridden to the hunt, she took the little shirts and went into the wood, and the ball of yarn showed her the way. The children, who saw someone in the distance, thought it was their dear father coming to see them, and came jumping for joy to meet him. Then the wicked queen threw over each of them one of the little shirts, and as soon as the shirts touched their bodies, they were changed into swans and flew away through the wood. What is it about stepmothers? So the queen went home much pleased to think she had got rid of her stepchildren, but since the maiden had not run out with her brothers, the queen knew nothing about her. How does she know about any of them in the first place? And if she does know anything about them, why wouldn't she know about the daughter, her stepdaughter? The next day the king went to see his children, but he found nobody but his daughter. "Where are your brothers?" asked the king. "Ah, dear father," answered she, "they have gone away and have left me behind." And then she told him how from her window she had seen her brothers in the guise of swans fly away through the wood. And she showed him the feathers which they had let fall in the courtyard, and which she had picked up. The king was grieved, but he never dreamt that it was the queen who had done this wicked deed. And as he feared lest the maiden should also be stolen away from him, he wished to take her away with him. But she was afraid of the stepmother, and begged the king to let her remain one more night in the castle in the wood. Wait. Okay, so the daughter is saying that her brothers left. She doesn't know why. That they were. I don't know why she knew there were swans. And I don't... Okay, so she didn't see the queen do it, though. So the king doesn't know it was the queen, right? So he didn't know that. Why is the stepmother... Why is the daughter afraid of the stepmother? Maybe just because of the king being worried, told the kids, this is why I'm taking you away to this lonely castle, because I'm afraid the stepmother is going to be bad to you. And so maybe the daughter is still scared. Okay. Okay, I'm on board, I understand. But she was afraid of the stepmother and begged the king to let her remain one more night in the castle in the wood. And then she said to herself, I must stay here no longer, but go and seek my brothers. And when night came, she ran away straight into the wood. I still don't understand why she knows they're her brothers. I guess the number of them? She went on all that night and the next day until she could no longer for weariness. Until she could go no longer for weariness. At last she saw a rude hut. And I guess an ugly, simple hut, I guess. At last she saw a rude hut, and she went in and found a room with 6 little beds in it. She did not dare to lie down in one, but she crept under one and lay on the hard boards and wished for night. See, she, unlike other little girls walking into strange houses, she doesn't sleep in their beds. That's nice. When it was near sunset, she heard a rustling sound and saw 6 swans come flying in at the window. They alighted on the ground and blew at one another until they had blown all their feathers off, and then they stripped off their swan skins as if they had been shirts. When the maiden looked at them and knew them for her brothers, she was very glad and crept out from under the bed. The brothers were not less glad when their sister appeared, but their joy did not last long. You must not stay here, they said to her. This is a robber's haunt, and if they were to come and find you here, they would kill you. What? And cannot you defend me? Asked the little sister. No, answered they, for we can only get rid of our swan skins and keep our human shape every evening for a quarter of an hour. After that we must be changed again into swans. Their sister wept at hearing this and said, Can nothing be done to set you free? Can't they, go back to the king and just explain in that 15 minutes? Oh no, answered they, the work would be too hard for you. For 6 whole years you would be obliged never to speak or laugh, and during that time you would have to make 6 little shirts out of aster flowers. What's an aster flower? What kind of flower is that? Aster flowers. It's a perennial plant. Wow, it's a huge number of different species. Okay, so this is like a pretty common flower, I guess. This is an incredibly common flower. And the reason I haven't seen one, really, is because it's in, Europe and Asia. Okay. Maybe that's why I don't quite recognize that word right away. Okay, out of aster flowers. If you were to let fall a single word before the work was finished, all would be of no avail. And just as the brothers had finished telling her this, the quarter of an hour came to an end, and they changed into swans and flew out of the window. But the maiden made up her mind to set her brothers free, even though it should cost her her life. She left the hut and went into the middle of the wood, where she climbed a tree and there passed the night. The next morning she set to work and gathered asters and began sewing them together. As for speaking, there was no one to speak to, and as for laughing, she had no mind to laugh. She was sad. So she sat there and looked at nothing but her work. When she had been going on like this for a long time, it happened that the king of that country went hunting in the wood. So she's in a different country. And some of his huntsmen came up to the tree in which the maiden sat. How's she eating and stuff? Like she's sneaking in and stealing some fruit from the robbers, I guess, and going and hiding in a tree and working. Let's pretend that's what's going on. They called out to her, "Who are you?" But she gave no answer. "Come down," they cried. "We will do you no harm." But she only shook her head. When they tormented her further with questions, she threw down to them her gold necklace, hoping they would be content with that. But they would not leave off. So she threw down to them her sash, and when that did no good, she threw down her garters. And one after another, everything she had on and could possibly spare, until she had nothing left but her smock. It's like her underdress. But it all did no good. The huntsman would not be put off any longer, and they climbed the tree, carried the maiden off, and brought her to the king. Okay. I'm not going to comment on that. Just don't do that. Just don't do that. The king asked, "Who are you? What were you doing in the tree?" But she answered nothing. He spoke to her in all the languages he knew, but she remained dumb. So that means she doesn't speak. But since she was very beautiful, the king felt a great love rise up in his heart towards her. And casting his mantle round her, he put her before him on his horse and brought her to his castle. Then he caused rich clothing to be put upon her, and her beauty shone as bright as the morning, but no word would she utter. He seated her by his side at table, and her modesty and gentle mien so pleased him that he said, "This maiden I choose for a wife, and no other in all the world." And accordingly, after a few days, they were married. Shotgun wedding. But the king had a wicked mother, who was displeased with the marriage and spoke ill of the young queen. "Who knows where this maid can have come from?" said she, "who is not able to speak a word? She is not worthy of a king." After a year had passed and the queen brought her first child into the world, the old woman carried it away and marked the queen's mouth with blood as she lay sleeping. Then she went to the king and declared that his wife was an eater of human flesh. The king would not believe such a thing and ordered that no one should do her any harm. And the queen went on quietly sewing the shirts and cared for nothing else. Not even her child? The next time that a fine boy was born, the wicked woman used the same deceit, but the king would give no credence to her words. He said, "She is too tender and good to do any such thing, and if she were only not dumb and could defend herself, then her innocence would be as clear as day." When for the third time the old woman stole away the newborn child and accused the queen, who was unable to say a word in her own defense, the king could do nothing but give her up to justice. She was sentenced to suffer death by fire. The day on which her sentence was to be carried out was the very last day of the 6 years during which she was neither to speak nor laugh, in order to free her dear brothers from the evil spell. The six shirts were ready, all except one which lacked the left sleeve. And when she was led to the pile of wood, she carried the 6 shirts on her arm. Did nobody actually ask about that weird hobby that the queen has? When she mounted the pile, and the fire was about to be kindled, all at once she cried out aloud, for there were 6 swans flying through the air towards her. She saw that her deliverance was near, and her heart beat for joy. The swans came up close to her with rushing wings and stooped round her, so that she could throw the shirts over them. And when that had been done, the swan skins fell off them, and her brothers stood before her in their own bodies quite safe and sound. But as one shirt wanted the left sleeve, the youngest brother had a swan's wing instead of a left arm. They embraced and kissed each other. Oh. And the queen went up to the king, who looked on in astonishment, and began to speak to him. "Dearest husband," she said, "now I may dare to speak and tell you that I am innocent, and have been falsely accused." And she related to him the treachery of the old woman. How does she know? Who had taken away the 3 children and hidden them. And she was reconciled to the king with great joy. And the wicked mother was bound to take to the stake on the pile of wood and burnt to ashes. Based, I guess, I mean, based, it's his wife, so he believes it, but he is burning his mother alive. And the king and queen lived many years with their 6 brothers in peace and joy. And I really do have to... Okay, this kind of wandered. Okay. Okay, so this is... I'm really confused because this meandered. This got really weird. Okay, so king gets lost in a wood. Okay. King gets lost in a wood. King is forced to have a wife, which he doesn't really like. But he marries her. And she has a bunch of children that... Oh, no. He already had some children. So when she brought this new queen, he hid the children. Okay. So all of these... And the daughter... Okay, so the sons were turned into swans and the daughter survived. The daughter ran away. So the daughter... So the king lost all of his children and never met them again. And we don't know what happened to the queen, whose fault... the witch queen who turned all of them into swans in the first place. So maybe there's a different, like, vengeance story that we can headcanon here, where the new queen is reunited with her 3 kidnapped babies and goes off to meet her father. They all go off to meet her father with his 3 grandchildren. And then they also somehow find out that her stepmother, that queen, did all the magic in the first place and also burnt her to the stake. So everybody lives happily ever after, except for the 2 really, really evil stepmothers. For some reason, it's the stepmothers.